I was strolling on the moon one day in a merry, merry month of December, now May.
If I were to summarize NASA's strategy to exploration, I'd use the television show The $6 Million Man. The universe has an unknown range of analog frequencies, and NASA's secret is to translate those things beyond our human perception into a range we can see, touch, hear, or smell. The secret to the bionic eye, beyond the zoom capability, was in a transducer that turned night into day by presenting the brain with a translation of things seen only at night into day as his brain could see things. We call it today night vision goggles or infrared sensors. This too is what NASA has been doing, zooming in on distant objects and presenting things beyond human perception in ways that human senses can detect. The unquestionable leader of discovery is the Hubble Space Telescope. Unlike the high inclination of the shuttle, the space station, Hubble orbits at a more natural 28.5 degree orbit. This lower orbit also allows shuttles to go about 100 miles higher to where Hubble is than where the station is. I have never been a fan of the James Webb Telescope, mainly because billions have been spent on something still on the ground, and cost overruns have painfully cut into other programs at NASA. But the Hubble is a very hard platform to task, and one drawback of its powerful zoom is that it isn't looking at the bigger picture, just a small magnified slice of it. Meet Dr. Lee Kimberly Ennico Smith, one of NASA's brightest scientists and also one who does what NASA needs most. Someone who can do what those instruments do, translate complex concepts beyond comprehension into something an ordinary mind can understand. And she excels in that very tremendously. I've long tried to do the same thing myself in space and science projects, but I woefully fall short of where Dr. Ennico Smith's mastery has on this skill. And I think SpaceFest should certainly invite her to future events. I first heard of the NASA Sophia project long after I was first introduced to Dr. Ennico Smith. In fact, it made its first appearance in the Dryden trade paper called The Express. The simple interiors, painted with zinc chromate, are a practical trade-off. More science mass can be loaded. Here is Dr. Lee Kimberly Ennico Smith aboard a recent flight on Sophia. The tail seems much larger than what is normal on a 747, and in fact it's just shorter, moving the center line in the center of gravity forward so that when this thing does what it does at altitude, the reinforced tail won't be ripped off by aerodynamic pressures.
Yeah, 747, heavy climb, maintain 14,000.
Okay, passing 10 for 14,000,
At altitude, a massive opening appears in the fuselage so that the German-built science instruments can see the universe, or at least a lot more of it than most ground-based telescopes can. Sophia can translate invisible bands into the visible to give a much better understanding of items even as close as Jupiter than what can be seen with the unaided human eye without this extended reach. While this may look like one of Lucy West's paintings, in fact, it is Sophia looking deep into the constellation Orion, uncovering hidden frequencies and translating them into a form the human mind can understand. Sophia gets the opportunity to target objects in space that Hubble hasn't been tasked to observe, and in fact is making new discoveries on every flight. In the summer months, we see the core of our galaxy, even if all we really see is Sagittarius and a few other stars on this side of a giant dust cloud that fogs our view of the galaxy and in fact protects us from a lot of cosmic rays. Anyone who has ever lost a loved one or has wondered if we'll ever see the big picture can dream of what exists beyond our universe. I think we might see endless bright beginnings of universes fanning out through time into cooling and dying universes, all at once, time from beginning to end. If we could close in on one of them, ours, and go into our own universe from the outside, we would be surrounded suddenly with time, matter, and energy, never duplicated even once in the structure or molecular arrangement within the dynamic, ever-expanding universe, and that perpetually shifts our future into our past. Science can never reach past these boundaries, so eternally, that is something only appropriate to the philosophers, the faithful, and perhaps even the dreamers. But one thing science has taught us is that Earth is truly smaller than we like to think it is, both in size and in stature within creation. Yet it appears so large because we are so close to it. If mapped to a galactic orientation, we would have a much different view of even our own solar system. The only reason my galactic view is upside down from most astronomers is because in my mind, 90 degrees still faces east, 270 west. From down here, anything out of the ordinary seems extraordinary, even the last shuttle launch from Launch Pad 39B. From atop Mount Lemmon, Tucson appears as the huge galaxy, while the much larger and brighter galaxy in the sky hardly grabs our attention. Our moon has only a quarter of Earth's diameter and only half of that of Mars. Yet when seen together, Mars looks like a smaller, insignificant dot. One thing I love about Dr. Inico Smith is that she knows that always good answers begin with good questions. My astronomical haven is atop Mount Lemmon at 9,157 feet, more than a mile above Tucson. Yet in this scale, Sophia is operating from the vantage point of the camera. Not only does Sophia contend with much less atmosphere, it has optical correction software on board that can mitigate and even reverse any distortion caused by the upper atmosphere. Dr. Inico Smith has consistently been a key part of many important teams NASA here on the LaCrosse or LCrosse missions, some call it. As stated earlier, LRO aimed for the moon, but LCrosse or LaCrosse took off on a whole different tangent.
2, 1. We have ignition and liftoff of NASA's New Horizons spacecraft on a decade-long voyage to visit the planet Pluto and then beyond.
But Dr. Kimberly Inico Smith was also a part of one of NASA's greatest missions, the one I saw take off from the other side of Florida like nothing I have seen before or since. That thing was moving.
The 5 solid rocket strap-on boosters are burning just fine, sending the New Horizons spacecraft on its way to the very edge of our solar system.
Steps to being the next Dr. Kimberly Inico Smith: stay interested, stay in school, and tea doesn't hurt.